I guess it's 8:30. It's actually after 8:30. It's like 8:32. So I guess we should probably start now. Seems like as good a time as any to get going here on the Panther-Lair Show on a Wednesday night here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You know the deal. What we always say. Like and subscribe, like and subscribe, like and subscribe. And go check out the website, Panther-Lair.com. On the video side, you know what we always have here. We've got the morning Pitt videos Monday through Friday. That's every day of the week, a little bit of a Pitt sports talk to get your day started. We have these weekly live shows every Wednesday night. We have the post-game shows, which are always fun. And, win or lose, I mean, the Wofford post-game show was pretty entertaining and fun. And the Cincinnati post-game show was pretty entertaining and fun. And I'm sure that Saturday night's post-game show after the Backyard Brawl is going to be pretty entertaining and fun. I think we'll have a pretty good crowd for that, even though it's a close road game. And a lot of Pitt fans will probably be making the trip down to Morgantown. I think a lot will still be watching on TV. And usually when we have a lot of Pitt fans watching on TV, that leads to some rowdy and fun post-game shows. So I'm sure on Saturday night, we're going to have it going. It'll probably start around 11 o'clock, I would say, on the post-game show. I'll know an exact time as the game is going on. But if you want to make sure you don't miss it, you want to like and subscribe, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And, of course, the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com, the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, recruiting, and message boards to talk to other Pitt fans. All day, every day, Pitt fans are talking on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com. Some days they are happier than others. As you can imagine, they are not all that happy right now, but so it goes. So it goes. Sometimes the week after a loss can be very active on the message boards, but not necessarily good vibes, and you'll have that from time to time. But if you want to stay up to date on all the latest Pitt sports news, if you want to interact with other Pitt fans, the place to do it is Panther-Lair.com. And, of course, our good friend from Panther-Lair.com, he joins us every week. And he's our guy, Jim Hammett. Jim, I'm glad you are still here. What do you make of the message boards this week?
It's not my first loss working at Panther-Lair. I kind of knew what I was walking into, so nothing out of the ordinary. I thought it was kind of a normal post-Pitt loss, apocalypse kind of couple days.
I feel like it's tough when it's early in the season like this because there's no sort of evidence that they're going to be good, right? All we've really seen in real games is them being bad. And so it's like there's no like counterbalance. Like at least after the Tennessee game last year, there was the West Virginia game, right? So it's, well, they're bad, but at least they could win game. You know, they've shown that they could win a game. Right now, there's no counterbalance. So they really need a win this week just to show that they're capable of such a thing. I'm curious, how different would the discourse have been if, say, that final drive, where were they at? They were at the 29 or something like that.
They got pretty far.
Yeah, they got to the 29. Let's say they get another like pass interference penalty and they end up inside the 20 and then dumb luck their way into like 15 yards of passing and they score a touchdown. They win the game 28-27. I kind of feel like the boards would still be pretty like unpleasant this week. I mean, I don't think the win itself would have overshadowed a 10 of 32, or at that point maybe it would have been 12 of 36 performance or something like that from Phil Jacoby. I mean, do you think just simply winning the game would have muted some of the negativity this week?
I think a little bit. I think those that are looking for the negatives would still find the negatives, but those looking for the positives would at least have like something to balance it or counter it with. So this week it's just been nothing but everything's terrible. Anything Pitt has ever done in the past 5 years doesn't count. Narvaez is not a good coach. Like I think they actually have to give back the ACC championship from a couple years ago. But I think what has happened this week is everyone's so worried about that loss. It's like there hasn't been like a ton of like buzz. They're playing West Virginia this week. Like this is huge. Like it should be a big deal. So I think by Wednesday, I think now we're allowed to start talking about the next game a little bit.
I mean, that would be nice. I keep seeing that. It was on the message board, and I think Colin Dunlap might have tweeted it. Do you feel like there's less buzz for this? I mean, it is. It's the Backyard Brawl, and the game's down there, so it's not up here. Maybe that's part of it. But, I mean, I guess they're right. I mean, there is less buzz, but I don't know what I'm, like, looking for in terms of buzz. Like, where would the buzz be if the buzz was there? You know what I mean?
Yeah, last year was different just because it was the first game,
Right.
and everyone knew it was college game day was coming, and Pitt was ranked, and both teams are 1-1. And looking at the West Virginia side of things, Neil Brown's on the hot seat. Like, if you kind of browse their message boards, which are slightly more pleasant than ours right now, but they're all saying like he might not be able to survive another loss to Pitt, like given the way the past couple of years have gone for him. So yeah, I don't know. I think everyone's just like, both fan bases are like, we really need this. I'm not excited about it. I don't care how we do it, but we need this more so than they're excited about it.
Right. I definitely think once people get to the stadium on Saturday, like the energy is going to be there. You know what I mean? That place is going to be packed. They're going to be fired up. There's going to be a strong contingent of Pitt fans, not 75% of the stadium or anything crazy like that, but there's going to be a strong contingent of Pitt. I mean, it's going to get rowdy, and I think it's going to get wild, and it's going to be exciting. And maybe there'll be more buzz in the aftermath, particularly if obviously if Pitt wins, there'll be more buzz on the message boards in the aftermath. But I think, I don't know. I guess it is probably because both teams, I mean, Pitt's coming off a loss. West Virginia's coming off a loss, a loss to Penn State, a win over Duquesne, which, doesn't really do much. Neither team looks all that great. There's nothing really riding on it. And like you said, it's not the first game of the season. So I don't know. I think the buzz will be there Saturday night, but it's just going to take until then. Now you're going down to the game, right?
I will be in Morgantown. I've never been there for a football game. I went to the basketball game a couple years ago, but I've never been down there for a game day.
Right. Yeah, it's great. I mean, I think it lives up to the expect. You know what I mean? It lives up to the reputation, at least between these two teams. I've never been to a West Virginia game against anyone else, but I think I went to the Pitt games in 05, 07, 09, and 11, and I mean it was a great atmosphere. It was a great scene, just like it was here. You know what I mean, for the games up here. So it should be a lot of fun. I'm going to ask you a few things, but I want to get into some of the comments and questions. Listen, of course, if anybody wants to make sure their comment gets read or their question gets answered, you could be a super chatter and then, kick a couple bucks to the podcast and we will make sure we get to your comment or your question. The post-game show was one of those where there wasn't, there were a lot of questions. And so we definitely didn't get to everyone. But Wolf HD has a question that I think is probably a pretty good jumping off point. He says, what do you think is the current issue with the Pitt offensive line? I doubt it's continuity because it's almost the exact same as last year. Where's the disconnect compared to last year? I think that's an interesting question on a lot of points because I do think the offensive line has been an issue. I think it was definitely an issue in the Cincinnati game. David Hale tweeted that Phil Dracovic has been under pressure on 49% of his dropbacks this year, which was a higher percentage than at Boston College. Pro Football Focus has him around 44% of his dropbacks this season, which is still bad. You shouldn't be under pressure on 44%. Cincinnati obviously had good defensive line, and they were pretty aggressive with their blitz packages. But are you surprised by the play of the offensive line so far? I know I spent all summer touting about how good they were and how good they were going to be this year.
Yeah, I was surprised a little bit. And I mean, I didn't expect them to be starting a true freshman by the second game of the season. Even the guys they have back, they're different positions than they were last year. So, I think this happened a little bit in the 2022 season where everyone just expected the line to be great. And it wasn't at first. But I think part of that was they played West Virginia, they played Tennessee right off the bat, and they had pretty good defensive lines and they kind of went after them. But I think as the season wore on, they got more comfortable. So I don't really know what the exact disconnect is. Like on Saturday after the game, they brought out Matt Gonsalves to talk to the media. And I kind of felt bad for him because of the five linemen, he was pretty good. Anytime they had a good run, it was off the left tackle. None of the pressures really came from the left side. He had a good game and he was visibly frustrated. But a lot of the issues right now for me is what I'm seeing is up the middle. The center and the two guards. And that's expected with the true freshman. I don't think I really expected that from Zubovic. I don't really expect that from Cradle. But then again, Corleone from Cincinnati is kind of like Kalijah Cansey. He's probably a first or second round pick. He definitely threw some good haymakers in that game. I think he bulldozed Cradle on one play. So yeah, I'm not expecting it to be an issue going forward, but I was a little surprised that, even though Cincinnati has a good defensive line, they gave them that much trouble.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm just kind of glancing over Pro Football Focus as you were talking there about the grades, the blocking grades for Pitt's offensive linemen in that Cincinnati game. And Pro Football Focus, it's very subjective with the grades. I take them with a grain of salt. I don't typically report them all that much. I'll go to them for snaps and targets and things like that. But Matt Gonsalves was the highest rated pass blocker on Pitt's offensive line, a grade of 74, which doesn't seem all that great, but it's a color green as opposed to the yellow or the red. So I guess it's good to be in the green. Zabovic was right behind him at a 69.2. BJ Williams' pass blocking grade was 9. 9.0. This is a scale of 100, 1 to 100, and he was in the single digits. He was charged with allowing 5 pressures, which is most on the team. Gonsalves and Zabovic gave up 1 pressure each. Zabovic, of course, had the 2 false start penalties, which was pretty ugly. You can't have that. I don't know. I always I go back and forth. I try not to question personnel that much. I went on a long diatribe about this the other day, and I probably said it to you before that coaches have piles of information and data on these players and evidence and practice time and film sessions and all these things that they use to make their decisions on what personnel they use. And it's, for me, I don't have access to that information. I have 30 minutes of practice in a 3-hour game. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know the most about these players. So I typically shy away from questioning personnel decisions, but it's just, I can't get my head around the idea that BJ Williams was the best option at guard. And that's not any disrespect to BJ Williams, but for that particular game against a really good defensive line, particularly in the interior, I just can't believe that it wasn't a better option to move Matt Gonsalves inside the left guard and start Ryan Baer. And I mean, maybe that's not something you want to do for the full season. And I'm sure you don't want to do it just for one game, but or even play Baer at guard. I just, it's hard for me to believe that was the best option. And it's hard for me to believe that Ryan Baer's not one of the 5 best options right now. And that, I asked Pat Narduzzi on Monday of where is he as an option, either to step in as a guard or step in at tackle and move one of the other tackles to guard. And he really he brushed it off. He said, is their 3rd tackle right now. And that's kind of where it stands. But I don't know. Do you buy that this was the best option they had heading into this particular matchup?
I can confidently say of the entire 2023 recruiting class, I did not expect BJ Williams to get the first start. I can tell you that much. But yeah, I am surprised because they made it was, we were all led to believe that Ryan Baer was one of their best linemen and he was going to play, and he was able to play guard and tackle. We even interviewed him and he talked about playing guard. So I mean, I kind of like that idea that you brought up. Put Gonsalves at guard. He's played guard before, and if you're that worried that Baer can't play guard and he's a tackle only, which is fine, he's going to be the starting left tackle next year anyway, then move Gonsalves in. He can do it. There had to have been a better option than playing a true freshman against one of the better defensive lines you're going to see all season. I mean, that, like I said, Corleone's going to be a 1st or 2nd round pick, and you're putting a true freshman who's never really played before against him.
Yeah. I'm just sitting here as you're talking. I'm thinking put Terrence Moore at center and move Cradle back to right guard. What about some of these other guys, these younger guards that are on the, Terrence Moore playing another guard spot, or Terrence Enos, or I don't know. And I know these things can't happen quickly like that. It's tough, but it's just crazy to me that was the best option. And he wasn't the only reason they struggled, but he gave up more pressures than anyone else. He obviously had that bad pass blocking grade. And Frank Signetti today, when we were talking about this or that, he was like, I wouldn't want to put any quarterback, he said, in that situation. And I think he was talking about with the pass blocking. And it was yeah, so why was that the best option? It's just, it's weird. And I don't know if it carried over to the run game as well, if that's where they had some of the, I tend to think that they just weren't committed to the run in this game. I mean, it still sort of boggles my mind that they did as little as they did to even attempt to establish the run. I mean, would you ever believe that a Pat Narduzzi, Frank Signetti team would have a game where the 3 running backs would combine for 18 carries? And I mean, yeah, they were down, 20, but not for the entire game. They ran the ball 6 times on their first 16 plays. They weren't down 20 at that point. And even when they were down 17 or when they were down, 13 or 20 or whatever it was, I mean, you could have handed the ball off. There was never a point where I was like, oh, they're so far behind. They got to throw to catch back up. I'm shocked. I don't understand. I don't think it was Cincinnati taking it away because they only ran it 18 times. Like, does that still like make your brain hurt the way it makes mine?
Yeah, I mean, I even think on that last drive, whenever they got the ball to 39 with 5 minutes left, like they were playing like they were in a hurry. And I remember saying out loud, I'm like, why are they doing this? Like, why are they only doing like fly routes to bub means on the sideline whenever they don't have to be in a hurry? They can chew some clock and get some first downs. But I mean, I think if they want to run the ball, I think they have the ability to. And I think the offensive line's probably more conditioned or better to do that, at least at this stage of the season. I mean, like, it's weird with the running back rotation, but like all 3 of them had a decent run. They all broke off like a 10, 12-yard run. I think they can do it if they try. And I think that's something that needs to be part of the game plan going forward this weekend. You're not going to go into Morgantown and expect Phil Dracovic to all of a sudden go from 31 completion percentage to 65. It's not going to happen. So you need the run. And I would expect that to be a bigger part of the game plan this week.
Yeah, I think Rodney Hammond's first carry came on the Pitt's 3rd drive of the game, and he bounced it outside to the left and ran for 11 yards. Who knew? Who would have guessed that if you give the ball to your best running back? That was another thing, too. And this is something I talked about today on the Morning Pit. I'm going to write about it in the 3-2-1 column as well. Again, I hate to question the personnel decisions, but I hated the running back rotation. I looked at it. They really just went every other drive. They went back and forth between Rodney Hammond and Cibo Flemister. Daniel Carter maybe was the lead back on one drive. Otherwise, he was just the 3rd down back. That brought him in for almost every 3rd down. Otherwise, it was just back and forth, back and forth. Yes, I'm holding 2 green pens. Back and forth, back and forth. Like I mean, every coach since the dawn of time has said running backs need consistent work. They need a bunch of carries to get into a rhythm and get rolling, and it's hard to sort of bounce them in and out like that. I understand getting Cibo Flemister in, but I don't think you can go 3 and out with Rodney Hammond and be like, okay, Cibo, it's your drive now. It didn't make any sense to me. Even if that was the plan, you got to scrap the plan when you go 3 and out on your first 2 drives. You got to stick with a guy and give him a chance to get into a rhythm.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be Rodney Hammond. Like, I think he's their best running back, but if they feel like one of those other guys is just as good, let them have more than 1 series in a row. I mean, like, stick with something. I mean, if you think Cibo Flemister can get some yards, if you think Daniel Carter's that, the option there, then go with it. But like, I'm with you. I mean, you can't. They always say we got to play the hot hand. How do you know who's hot?
Yeah. I mean, Rodney Hammond didn't touch the ball until the 3rd drive of the game. So, even if he was the hot hand to start the game, he was cold by then. It didn't. And I don't mind Carter as the 3rd down back. Let me check the blocking grades there. His pass blocking, according to Pro Football Focus, his pass blocking grade was better than Gonçalves. He was the highest rated pass blocker on the game. He allowed no pressures on 6 pass block snaps. So, he was out running routes and doing Cibo actually had more pass blocking snaps than Daniel Carter did. I kind of like Cibo and maybe Hammond because I think those guys might be better pass catchers. So I like them a little bit better on 3rd down situations. But if you want to go with Carter as your 3rd down back, that's fine. I would almost do like 2 drives for Hammond and then one for Cibo, or 2 and 2 and back and forth like that. I don't think you can go 1 and 1 and back and forth and alternate every other drive. I think if that's what they do on Saturday, I think they're asking for trouble again. And another thing, since you mentioned about the fly routes to bub means, I don't think they're giving him a chance to be successful because that's almost all they're doing. Again, Pro Football Focus, he has 15 targets this year. 9 of them are targets of 20 yards or more down the field. His average depth of target is like 23.3 yards per target. Second most among all FBS receivers with at least 10 targets this season. All they're doing is throwing him the ball down the field. He leads the country in targets of at least 20 plus yards. He has 9. No other FBS receiver has that many targets. Conversely, there are 360 players at all positions who have caught a pass that was targeted 20 plus yards downfield. 360. So even though Bub Means leads the nation in those deep targets, he's not among that 360. I don't think you're giving him a chance. Give him something high percentage. Give him something a little bit shorter, a medium distance, just to get a couple catches under his belt. I don't think it's fair to the kid when, 9 out of 15. Can you do the math on that? What's the percentage there? Three-fifths? 60% of his targets are that far downfield. I know that's what he's supposed to be able to do. It's what he did at Louisiana Tech, and I know it's what we heard about it all camp, the deep passing game. Well, that's good, but not like 9 times a game, like 3 times a game, 4 times a game, and then balance it out with a few like shorter passes. I don't feel like they gave Bub Means he didn't play well, but I don't feel like they gave him a chance to succeed in that game.
No, I agree. And just even there was nothing thrown across the middle that game. Very, very few. I mean, even if you're going to use Bub Means, maybe a 15-yard in or something. It doesn't have to be down the sideline where it's either a catch or, they always I think Narduzzi always says it's we just take what the defense gives us. I was I think they wanted to give you that. I think that was part of the idea. It's all right, we'll make Phil Dracovic hit this really tough pass down the sideline. We'll take our chances with it. They played the odds correctly.
Yeah. And, they did go over the middle to Gavin Bartholomew for a touchdown, which was actually a great throw. And they had that play earlier in the game, and Phil made a bad throw on it. So, there were opportunities there. Another big thing I've said this week is I think, going forward, yeah, Bub, you're going to have to throw it to him. He's one of your top receivers. But if it's me, I'm emphasizing Konate Mumfield. I'm emphasizing Gavin Bartholomew, and to a lesser extent, but still some, I'm emphasizing Dejon Reynolds, because I think those 3 guys all played really well on Saturday. And we spent all this time talking about Bub Means, but maybe we forgot about Konate Mumfield. He looked really good. He caught all 4 of his targets and looked really good in that game. So, that's who I'm emphasizing. And I'm trying to get the ball to the running backs, throwing the ball to the running backs in addition to establishing the running game, which all these things we're describing right now, I feel like we could have said on August 1st that this is what they should do and probably will do. But here we are talking about it in week 3 of you guys, you should probably do these things. It just seems like, I don't know if they didn't know their identity in that Cincinnati game, or they weren't sure their identity, but they seemed to stray away from it. Running the ball, play action, Bartholomew, Mumfield, some shots to Bub Means, not all the shots to Bub Means.
Yeah, they need to run the ball more than 18 times. They need to get the ball to Bartholomew. They need to find better opportunities for Means. And like you said, I've been impressed with Mumfield, but I kind of knew he had that. I've been pleasantly surprised by Reynolds. I think he's a lot better than I ever gave him credit for. I kind of, just the way camp went, it just kind of seemed like Kenny Johnson was gunning for his job. But seeing him on the field, he's useful. I think they could get him the ball and make plays. So they have weapons. They just need to find a way to utilize them.
Yeah, I really wondered about Reynolds. I was like, is this just a one-hit wonder? A guy who had a big game against, against Vanderbilt last year, and that he was never really gonna. But no, he looked perfectly serviceable and usable, and like he can make an impact. Super chatter. Bill Florgen says, if this team plays like this all year, along with the Steelers, I'm going to look like Lincoln after the war when this season is over. Faith in the defense, gravely concerned about who's play calling the offense. The play calling concerns date back to last year. I had long conversations with myself on these podcasts about who was to blame, about whether it was Keaton Slovis or Frank Signetti. And the reality was it probably was a combination of both. And those questions are still there, and those questions will continue to be there. There's no solution to that. They just have to get the ball to the playmakers. They got to run the ball. They have to do all the things we just said. They got to run the ball with the running backs. They got to commit to the running game. They have to establish play action. Then they have to go to the receivers who can, make plays. I also have some confidence in the defense bouncing back. But if the offense is going to be better, and it's probably not ever going to be great, but if it's going to be better, they have to do those things. So hopefully, I'm looking at Bill's got a picture there. You see that, Jim? He says he's going to look like Lincoln after the war.
Beard.
Yeah, he doesn't have a beard yet. So Bill, I don't know, maybe after this week, if the Steelers lose to the Browns and Pitt loses to West Virginia, you probably should start growing the beard, because it's going to be a long season. How much, this game, we could probably say it about both teams, but particularly for Pitt, this game, if they lose this game, I guess it depends on how they lose it or what it looks like. But how what's the right way to ask it? How many people are going to be jumping off the ledge that haven't yet jumped off the ledge? I mean, is this the breaking point for what percentage of the Pitt fan base?
I'd say a lot, just because everyone knows that North Carolina is the week following it. Everyone's worried about Drake May. That's like, I think everyone's like, well, if you lose this, you're probably going 1-3. So like everyone's already counting the North Carolina loss. So like in a lot of people's mind, like I said earlier, like there's no buzz around the game because both teams are just so nervous that they have to figure out a way to win it. Mm-hmm. That's kind of where everyone is right
now. Yeah. G Money, he said this a long time before you did. He says, I felt all the throws to the receivers were to the left or the right, nothing over the middle except a few to the tight ends. Any way to track this? So Pro Football Focus has they have a chart. Maybe I can actually share it here. Let's see if I can do this. Present, share my screen. Pro Football Focus. I don't know if you'll be able to see. Can you see that, Jim?
I can, yeah.
Okay. So sometimes can you see all of my browser tabs that I've opened, or you just see this tab?
Just this tab.
Okay, good. Because I always get worried about that when I share my screen, because I'm worried that I'm going to you don't need to know what tabs I've had open of articles I've been trying to finish, but or finish reading. So I don't always find this to be accurate, and you could probably look at it and find some inaccuracies yourself. But this is kind of the breakdown, and it's like, well, where are all the completions? Well, there were only 10 total. So according to this, 4 in the middle. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, 4 on the right side, 2 on the left side. I mean, there just weren't many passes, at all. It was just, I mean, I guess there were 32 passes. So 8 to the deep right corner, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, 6 over the middle at a middle distance. I don't know where all, I mean, I guess I can sort of envision a lot of those plays. I mean, Gavin Bartholomew was targeted at least 3 times that I can think of. So most of those probably accounted for him, or, he probably accounts for most of those, but I don't know. Is there any insight or anything you can glean out of that? Or does that pretty much back up what you were suspecting?
That's kind of about what I mean, whenever there's only like 10 completions, like right. I know he was asking like where were all the targets even, but
right. Yeah, I don't have it doesn't break it down by receivers or tight ends or anything like that. But I wonder if I just violated some kind of copyright or something by sharing Pro Football Focus's data there. But, what are you going to do? So I don't know. I mean, like left, right, middle, just get it to Mumfield, throw it to 9, throw it to 86, occasionally throw it to 3, maybe see if 2 can work into the mix a little bit more. Try to get 0 involved and hand the ball to 6 all the time. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it seems like basic stuff. It seems like, the other thing I could have showed you on that screen is play action, where they just didn't really run play action all that much. So it just felt like such a weird game that they just deviated from their identity on offense. And not necessarily because it wasn't working. I felt like they weren't even really doing the things that are supposed to be their identity. It was a lack of trying, not even a lack of success, but a lack of trying. It just, I don't know.
Yeah, it looked like they panicked. Like they got down 10-0 and they're like, well, we just got to start throwing the ball now. And there was no real reason to do it. They needed to slow down. They needed to slow the game down. They should have slowed the game down, but they didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not like, I mean, Cincinnati scored, quite a bit, but I mean, they didn't score on their second drive. They didn't score on their third drive. So it's not like Cincinnati was just going up and down the field. I guess they got a field goal in there somewhere, but I mean, they weren't just going up and down the field, scoring endlessly. And, you were down 24-0. It wasn't like the Miami game in 2021 where they had like 3 touchdowns in the first quarter or something. I mean, it was far more, manageable, and there was no reason, like you said, to panic. I think it's probably a good way to put it. Willat Harris says, hi, Chris Peak. Unfortunately, my biggest fears came true last week regarding the overall team talent. I really didn't see any big-time plays outside of Gavin Bartholomew, 6-6 talent, 6-6 season. I just don't know if I agree about that. I think there are a lot of things you can point out with that game. I think Phil Dracovic had the worst game of his career, despite the fact that he threw 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. I think he would probably agree that he had the worst game of his career. He had one of the worst games we've ever seen from a quarterback, since about 2007 or so, when Kevin Smith and And Pat Bostic certainly gave it a run for the money, or maybe Kenny Pickett, I guess, in the ACC championship game in 18. He had one of the worst games, though, that we've seen in a long, long time, right? And I think it was far below the level that he's capable of. I don't think he's a great quarterback, but I think he's much better than he showed on Saturday. I think it was an offense that completely, as we just said, deviated from its identity and didn't even do the things that it's good at or is supposed to be good at. One of the reasons I had some confidence about this offense is I felt like the players knew the system. They had a better idea of how it works and what it was supposed to do. And they didn't even really do those things, it seemed like. The defense, I think you saw some of the issues that come with having 6 new starters and new communication and errors and fits. And I think you saw some of that in the West Virginia game last year, and they cleaned a lot of it up for the Tennessee game. I don't look at this as I don't look at that game as an indictment on the overall team talent. I look at it as an indictment on where the team was on that particular day. And that's not just a cop-out. I think that it was the first real game of the season, and you're going to have some issues in that situation. So I don't think it's 6-6 talent. It still feels, even with that outcome, it still feels like an 8-4 team to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is good quarterback play can either elevate your team or mask some problems. And obviously, whenever you have bad quarterback play, it seems like everyone else is worse. So I kind of agree that there's still some talent on this team. I think especially defense. I mean, a lot of that was some inexperience. Like when you have like new safeties, new linebackers out there playing key roles, like some of those long runs, you could just tell it's like he just needed to be like 2 yards to the right to do that run fit that he's supposed to do. If he does it, they don't break those big yards. You don't go down by a lot. So it's cleaning up those little things they did in the second half. But I still think there's some good players on this team. I mean, I think, there's a couple guys that are going to get drafted after this year. I mean, I still think that all is going to continue. But again, like I said, I mean, quarterback play can either mask deficiencies or elevate guys around him. And we just didn't see that on Saturday. I mean, you have a guy completing 31% of his passes. It makes everything look worse.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's probably been the big emphasis this week is cleaning up the little things. And I think that's what we've heard from the coaches. That's what we've heard from the players. They're working on just cleaning up those little things. And if, Pitt fans and people listening to the show need to help cleaning up the little things in their life and their health and their fitness, a guy who can really help them is our good friend Chris Gates, because the Wednesday Panther-Lair Show is sponsored by Chris Gates Fitness. If you have a health or fitness goal and you need help achieving it with ChrisGatesFitness.com, it can help you learn more about online fitness coaching, how it works, and how you can benefit from working with Chris. Now, Chris will work together with you to create a fully personalized exercise program and pair it with a customized nutritional strategy that works you towards your goals. And he'll be there every step of the way to support you through the process. Whether you want to build muscle, burn fat, develop more functional strength, train for a sport or an event, or just generally develop healthier lifestyle habits, online coaching is one of the fastest and most efficient ways to get you from where you are now to where you want to go. And Chris loves working with fellow Pitt fans. He's a diehard Panther fan and a subscriber to both Panther-Lair.com and our podcast right here. So learn more at ChrisGatesFitness.com. Be sure to mention Panther-Lair when you apply. How was that? That was better segue than recent weeks. I felt like that one came in.
Yeah, that was good.
Smoother, more natural.
I think last week we were just like, oh yeah, we need to do the ad read.
Sometimes that happens. I mean, you're not going to nail them all, not going to nail them all. All right. William Richter says quarterback play needs to step up. The offensive line needs to play better. Cignetti needs to include our All-American tight end and not give Bub 11 targets with 0 catches. And two-part message, Rodney needs more touches. The defense is fine, but can and will improve.
Did we just say all that for the past half hour?
Well, to be fair, these comments were from like 8:35. So okay. William said this before we did. So we actually ripped him off. So apologies, Bill or Billy or Mac or Buddy. You got it first. You said it before we did. But good points. I agree. Blackman614 says, what a Pittsburgh media. No one asks Dews or Cigaretti about number 55. That would be BJ Williams, right? 55?
Wasn't he asked or...
That was like, I think that was one of the first questions in Narduzzi's post-game press conference, wasn't it? Like second or third question. What did Williams do to get the start?
Yeah.
I think I forget. Let me bring up the Monday press conference just to get it all, just to check all the bases.
I know Cignetti was asked about him today, too.
Cignetti was asked today. Yep.
So,
BJ Williams. Yeah. Narduzzi talked about it. I guess he wasn't asked about BJ Williams, but let's see what Cignetti said. Cignetti was asked, what was the impetus for putting BJ in the starting lineup this week, and where do you feel he stood after that game? Cignetti's answer, quote, yeah, BJ had a great spring. True freshman, great spring. You can see that he's very talented, and for BJ, it was going to be a matter of time. And you don't want to rush it, right? You know what I mean? No reason to rush it. And then we just felt like after the first game and through his performance and how he had been practicing and playing that it was time to put him in there. So, yeah, they were both asked, Narduzzi and Cigaretti. So, don't know what to tell you. Willett Harris says Cincinnati had minimal talent at best. I would disagree. I think Don Corleone was really good. Jawan Briggs is really good. And somebody else pointed out to me, this team, okay, so they were G5, AAC, right?
Yeah.
And just moved to the Big 12 this year. But they were recruited in the midst of Cincinnati making the playoffs, right? Going 12-0. Luke Fickell, the success, Luke Fickell got the job because of the success at the job at Wisconsin because of the success he was having at Cincinnati. And that success is what they were recruiting on to build the current roster. So, I mean, they got good recruits. I bet if we went back and look at their recruiting classes and rankings, they'd probably be pretty solid, like on a level with your average Power 5 team. So this isn't just an AAC team coming out of nowhere. Like you didn't just lose to, pick, Tulane or Memphis or something like that. And Tulane's been good. But this was a team recruited on some really successful seasons by a really good head coach at Cincinnati. So it's not just a bunch of bums that are out there. I think it's a talented team. And I think they showed it, not just against Pitt, but I'm going to be interested to see how they do in the Big 12. I think they were picked to finish pretty far down the list, right? They were picked to finish pretty low in the Big 12. But I mean, if they play like that, if their defensive line plays like that, they can make some noise in that conference.
Yeah, I wasn't because I remember writing about it a few times last week. It's like I recognize a lot of guys on the Cincinnati roster because Pitt recruits Ohio so much.
Right.
Like I think their safeties like Byron Threats, he visited Pitt, Sammy Anderson visited Pitt. Like they're like all guys Pitt recruited. So it wasn't that surprising. They recruit a lot of the same guys.
Yeah. Jawan Briggs was a Pitt target. I mean, he would have looked good. Briggs and Corleone, Corleone is not the type of defensive tackle that they've had around here, but he could have started for them in that game. I don't think there's any question about it. Wolf HD says, what does Pitt need to do over these next few weeks to really right the ship? 3-0, 4-0, 2-1, 3-1. I mean, they have to win this week, and they have to win against Virginia Tech. Do they need to go 3-0 over these next three games, Jim? Or if they beat West Virginia, lose to Carolina, beat Virginia Tech, and they're sitting at 3-2 coming out of the month of September, is the ship righted?
I don't know if it's righted, but I think you're in a better place. I mean, everything starts with Saturday. Like I don't know if I can really give an evaluation of what they need to do against Carolina or Virginia Tech until I see what happens against West Virginia. They need this game. They really do. That's a lot of things could go south if they don't get this game. I think they really need this one.
If they do what I just said there, if they beat Virginia Tech and West Virginia, they lose to Carolina, they're 3-2. They have 7 games left. I'm still standing by my 8-4 prediction. So that would mean going 5-2 over those final 7 games, right? That's Louisville, at Wake, at Notre Dame, Florida State, Syracuse in the Bronx, Boston College at home, at Duke. I shouldn't say can, but I mean, what is the likelihood of going 5-2 in that stretch, assuming they look, relatively comparable to last year's team against West Virginia and Virginia Tech?
I mean, I think we saw it last year. They got better as the season went on. They had that 5-game winning streak last year. So it's possible. I mean, yeah, you look at it right now, and it's like, if you're going to talk about those 2 losses, you're going to say Notre Dame and Florida State right off the bat. But like in the most Pitt way possible, it's like, yeah, they would probably beat Notre Dame and like lose to Boston College and still go 5-2. Like that would be the very Pitt thing to do.
There is this, like, I don't even know, like, it's almost like this subversive element that it's well-seasoned Pitt fans who have seen this story plenty of times, that like they will end up like 8-4 but they'll only lose to one of Notre Dame or Florida State. Like where that there'll be another, they'll lose the one of those teams. They'll beat the other one, which actually, like, it would seem like, I don't know, what would be a more, I guess it would be a more classic Pitt move to beat Notre Dame, on the road, come home the next week, and then lose to Florida State, right? Because you would have all the momentum.
Yeah.
Or is it more of a classic move to lose to Notre Dame? Let's say they lose to like Wake Forest and Notre Dame back to back, right? And now they're, what would they be at that point? 5-4?
Yeah.
4-4? If they,
is there no wait?
If they lose Cincinnati, Carolina, Wake Forest, Notre Dame, they're 4-4, right? Because they have 4 games left, and then come back and run the table and go 8-4 in November. Go 4-0 in November again. That would kind of be like, because if you lose to Wake Forest and Notre Dame, it's like, oh, what a disaster. The wheels are coming off. They're 4-4. They're gonna, they'll be lucky to go 6-6, and then they just rattle off 4 wins in a row. They've put themselves far enough out of contention for relevance, because at that point they would have like, I guess, 2 conference losses, so they wouldn't be entirely irrelevant, but right. It would be that would be a pretty classic. There's a lot of classic Pitt ways it could go, but we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. They need to beat West Virginia. Yeah. Ernest Mantini says Jurkovec has a weak arm. Outside linebackers are too slow. Need to run shorter pass routes. Secondary's poor. Narduzzi's a 7-5 coach at best. Got lucky with Pickett. All right, so let's go one by one. Jim, do you think Jurkovec has a weak arm?
I don't think he has a strong arm. I don't think it's weak.
I would say it's strong enough.
Yeah, it's like what a Power 5 quarterback, like an average power, would have.
Outside linebackers are too slow. They put the top speed from the last week's game on a board in the South Side. Have you seen that? Sometimes you walk through, they'll put those like speed monitors. Solomon DeShields was like top 5 on the team. Like he was like top speed was like 21 or 22 miles per hour. It's not a problem. Need to run shorter pass routes. They do, but they also need to throw to those guys. Secondary's poor. No, corners are the strength of the team, and the safeties. I don't know. I mean, I'm not smart enough to tell you how the safeties play, but I think they did okay, and they're going to get better. Narduzzi's a 7-5 coach at best, except he went better than 7-5 in 2015, 2016, 2017. 2017 he didn't. 2018 he was 7-5 in the regular season. 2019 he did better. He was 7-5 that year too. 2020 doesn't count. 2021 he was better than 7-5. In 2022 he was better than 7-5. So what is that? 15, 16, 21, and 22. So half his years he's been better than 7-5. One of those times when he wasn't better than 7-5, when he went 7-5, he won the Coastal Division. Another time he went 7-5, he won a bowl game and finished with 8 wins. And then one of the other years he went 6-5 and probably would have been at least 7-5 plus a bowl game. So no, he's not. This is a long-winded, jumbled way of saying he's not a 7-5 coach at best. Got lucky with Pickett, the last point there. He recruited Pickett and developed Pickett, right?
Yeah. And nobody really liked Pickett until he was good.
Yeah.
So they got lucky with the quarterback. He probably wanted to get benched.
Ernest, I don't mean to disagree with everything you said, but sir, I don't agree with you, but I'll defend your right to say it. Hogmuncher says, if the offense doesn't turn around, is there a chance Cignetti gets fired? It was an uninspiring hire to begin with. Narduzzi needs to stop wasting quality defenses with outdated offenses. He's not going to get fired mid-season. I don't think anybody's getting fired mid-season. Now, when it gets to the end of the year, I mean, Narduzzi's had 4 offensive coordinators prior to this, and only one of them ever made it longer than 2 years, right? So odds are, whether the offense is good or not this year, I felt like odds, there were pretty good odds that his time was short, like whether he gets fired or he gets another job or whatever he wants to do. It's just not, it hasn't been Narduzzi's MO to keep offensive coordinators around that long. And the one guy who actually lasted longer than 2 years wasn't supposed to last longer than 2 years, right? He only got year 3 because Kenny Pickett was coming back. So do I expect Pat Narduzzi to ever have an offensive coordinator longer than 2 years? No, just because it hasn't happened. So will Cignetti get fired in the middle of the season? No. Will he be back in 2024? I would say history says no.
It's not on his side.
Yeah, right. So I don't know. Let's see. Blackman614 is really hung up on BJ Williams. Why was he starting? We kind of talked about that. Why wasn't Dews asked? He was. He also says number 55 would be redshirting at Memphis if he wasn't starting at Pitt. Think about it. All right, Jim. Think about it.
I thought about it.
No. Think about it. I don't even know what Memphis's offensive line 2 deep looks like. Do you?
No.
Have you looked at it recently?
I haven't watched the Memphis
Do you
games.
think that Blackman614 has studied Memphis's offensive line 2 deep to know for sure that a true freshman BJ Williams would not be starting on that group?
I'd venture to guess no.
If you have Blackman614, man, he really hates BJ Williams. Goodness. He says a tackling dummy at right guard would be a better option. He's got more comments, but they're not all about BJ Williams. Let's see. All right, never mind. I'm done with that. But yeah, we talked about it. We talked to Pat Narduzzi and we talked to Frank Signetti about it. Will Z says Borbley is too stubborn to move Bear to a starting role other than guard. And it's probably going to result in this being Borb's last year because of it. I think he means other than tackle. But the thing is, here's why I've been hung up on this idea is because they tried Ryan Bear at guard in the spring. And as Dave Borbley told it, they got to a point in the spring, they're like, okay, we like Branson, we like Matt at tackle, but we want to get Ryan on the field. Let's try him at guard. And so they did. And like the day they tried him at guard, Branson Taylor injured his shoulder or something and was out for like the rest of spring. And they were like, okay, you're going back to tackle now because we need you to play tackle. So Borbley's not opposed to it, but at some point over the summer, they decided that Ryan Bear is a better tackle than he is a guard, and they want to keep him there as the third tackle and be ready to play. And even if it's not Bear, we talked about it earlier with the options. It is interesting, not to side with Blackman614. It is interesting that there wasn't another option available other than a true freshman. I don't know. Maybe you just want to stick with Bear's development at tackle, and you feel like that's the best move for the team, I guess.
That's kind of been like one of my theories. It's like he's going to be your starting left tackle next year. You don't want to mess with it too much. But I like I said, there was better options than putting a true freshman against a really good defensive tackle.
Yeah. Pat O says, bingo, right there. Jim nailed it.
I said something good this podcast. At least one thing. I don't know.
What did you say at 8:47 p.m.? Do you have any memory of what you said approximately 32 minutes ago?
No.
Yeah.
Go back and study the tape.
Yeah, I think if you go to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com/live or something like that, the live stream is playing. I wonder if you could back it up and circle back and find out what you said, but it must have been good. Brock Madonic thinks they should give Dejon Reynolds more looks this week. I think we're both on board with that. I think he made a couple nice catches. Probably, I think there was one on the final drive. Was it the final drive or the next to last drive?
Next to last, because they didn't do anything on the final drive. I think they went.
No. I was saying a pass that he didn't catch, where he had a chance to make a good catch. It was the first play of the final drive.
Okay.
He had it was tough. It was going to be tough. It was going to be a contested catch, but he didn't quite come up with it. But yeah, somebody pointed out our friend Noah Hiles pointed out to me that the touchdown pass to Gavin Bartholomew was the last pass Pitt completed in that game. They did not complete another pass on the next two drives, which ultimately amounted to 9 plays. But I'm for it. Get Reynolds the ball. Emilio Rossi asks, what will it take for Pat Narduzzi to hire a great and innovative offensive coordinator rather than just playing it safe? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I think I have an idea of what Pat Narduzzi looks for in an offensive coordinator, but I also think that he has to know that they won the ACC championship behind their most explosive offense that they've had. He has to see that connection. He doesn't have to go totally crazy, but he has to value points. I don't think he devalues points or doesn't want to score, but I don't know. He was never going to go out and hire the guy at Clemson. I don't think he was ever going to get that hot rising star offensive coordinator. For one thing, I think, what I think he wants? I think he wants a veteran offensive coordinator. I'll say that. When I go back and forth about what I think he wants, I think from the beginning, he has wanted a veteran offensive coordinator and veteran coaches on offense because of his focus being on defense and his background on defense. So I think he wants a veteran guy. So I don't think you're going to see that young coordinator come in because I think of all the things Narduzzi does or doesn't want, I think that is one. I think he wants a guy with experience.
I agree. And I just looking at all of his hires, he wants someone that can be the head coach of the offense.
Right.
Like he wants someone that can just totally run the offense and be in charge of it. He goes into the meeting, says what he says, but he's a defensive guy at heart. So he wants to have, I don't necessarily want to say older, but a veteran offensive coordinator where Mark Whipple was an ex-head coach. Frank Cignetti's coaching the NFL. Someone along those lines is what he kind of looks for.
Yep, I agree. Willett Harris says starting Daniel Carter was brainless back when we were talking about the running back rotation. Well, they started Rodney Hammond in the Cincinnati game, right? They started Daniel Carter against Wofford. They started Hammond against Cincinnati, and I would think that Hammond will start every game from here on out. I think what we saw in the Cincinnati game, and we were talking about the running back rotation, going back and forth, one series each guy between Hammond and Flemister, with Carter as the third down back, I think we'll probably see that hold. I wouldn't be surprised if Daniel Carter continues in that third down role, with the primary tailbacks being Hammond and Flemister, which I think we talked a lot about over the summer and even in training camp when they were all talking up Daniel Carter. I just want to see them give Hammond more consecutive series to try and get going. But I'm okay. I'm good with Hammond or with Carter being the third down back. I mean, I'm of the mind that if you have good backs, you just keep them on the field for all three downs. But if they want to bring in Daniel Carter for third down, I think that's fine. Are you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's actually played poorly in the two games so far. I mean, he's probably exceeded my expectations. I didn't have very high ones for him going into the season, but he's clearly better than what I thought.
Let's see. Scrolling down, seeing what else people have to say. As we got some time here. Peninsula P. If Dracovic has a bad game against Western Michigan or West Virginia, Bear has to start against North Carolina. Do you think, what needs to happen for that to happen? Short of injury, no injuries. What would be your guess as to what finally would compel them to bring in Christian Bear against North Carolina?
A similar stat line and a loss.
Similar stat line.
Yeah, if you're still at the 30% mark and you lose again, I mean, I think that's probably when you pull the plug. I mean, I know everyone's thinking oh, he'll never change quarterbacks, except he has. I understand what happened last year. I still think there's probably some overrating of Nick Patty in these parts, but he has switched quarterbacks before. I mean, we saw Max Brown had a short leash. I think
DiNucci had a short leash.
Yes. The first year was that Chad Voidick got 2 starts and he was gone. So, I mean, he'll do it. I mean, there was just so many years it was just all Kenny Pickett. They were never going to switch quarterbacks, but I don't think he's against it. I know everyone thinks last year was this big, defining thing, but similar stat line and a loss. I think they could probably flip the page and go to a different quarterback, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do.
Yeah. I guess I would tend to agree. Turnovers too. That would probably be the big thing. If it was 10 of 32, I wonder what it would have been if it was 10 of 32 and instead of 3 touchdowns and no interceptions, it was the other way around. It was no touchdowns and 3 interceptions. I wonder if that would have compelled them to make a change or make a move. Blackman614 says, offense does not exist in a bubble. When the opponent's going up and down the field and scoring, the game plan changes. That's true, but I just don't, and we touched on this earlier, Jim, I just don't think it was quite as extreme to that point that you needed to go away from it. I mean, even, it's, 20-7 at halftime. That's not crazy. That's not out of, and they go touchdown, field goal, punt, touchdown, field goal in the first half. So they score on 4 out of 5 drives, but only 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals, and they punt. It wasn't so bad that they needed to completely abandon the running game. And again, they came out on their first drive and threw the ball 3 times. So it's not like, wow, they were really trying to establish the run, and then the game got away from them. They just, they never even tried. Peninsula P says if Pitt wins this game, the pendulum will swing back 180. We still have the ACC slate ahead of us. Yeah, I think this is, and we talked about it, I think it's an absolutely crucial game. You got to get the win and get some good momentum and come home against North Carolina and, see what can happen. But dear God, if they go out and, I mean, like you were just saying, if he has a similar stat line against West Virginia and they lose, they should maybe start there just to calm people down, just not boo as much as they're going to boo in that game.
Yeah, I mean, a win's going to change the perception. The dark cloud that's been hanging over Acrisure Stadium for the past 5 days will go away if they win. So they just need to find a way to do it. I think I've said it like 10 times in this podcast.
Yeah. Let's see. All right, we'll get one or two more in here. Anthony Tennyson says, Chris, your 24 over-under for carries when it comes to Daniel Carter may go down this weekend. What's Carter at right now on the season? Was it 24 and a half?
Yeah.
Total touches or?
I think it was total touches. So he had 6 last week. Yeah, he's like almost there.
Well, he's at 17 right now. So the numbers went down. He still doesn't have any receptions yet. And it was just regular season, right? Or no, I included the bowl game, didn't I? Crap.
Yeah.
Was it 24 and a half?
Yeah, I mean, I took the under. I think you took the over, didn't you?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think I was just trying to goad you into making difficult decisions and giving you a hard time about it. Let's see. Jack says it all stems from Phil's lack of passing ability. Once Cincinnati saw Phil can't throw, they sold out on the run. The defense only gave up 7 points in the second half. In my mind, it's all Phil. Do you agree? It's all Phil and the receivers. I mean, there's always going to be a tough question of like trying to figure out who's at fault. Like some of those like final passes there. So I don't know if you've rewatched any of it, any of the game. But that final drive, the second down throw, Phil must have thought Bub Means was gonna like run like a comeback to the sideline or something for like a back shoulder throw, and Bub just kept running down the sideline without ever even looking for the ball, and Phil kind of threw a tantrum. Did you go back and watch any of this?
I mean, I remember it, but yeah.
I didn't see it during the game. I didn't notice it. I'm scribbling down notes and stuff, so I didn't see him throwing a tantrum on the field. But like on that play, somebody was egregiously wrong. Like somebody screwed up in the biggest way, and it's either Phil or it's Bub. And one of them misread it. They definitely didn't see the same thing or read the same thing or make the same hot read or whatever it is or adjustment. I don't know whose fault it was. You know what I mean? And that's like part of the thing that I get hung up on. So like Jack says, in my mind, it's all Phil. Well, yes, Phil missed a bunch of passes. There's no question. He had one of the worst games we've seen from a quarterback. But at the same time, I think there were some things that like, I can't believe how far off that pass was if you and the receiver were attempting to do the same thing. You know what I mean? Like it's not even like they weren't on the same page. They weren't in the same book. I mean, it was so far off and so egregious. So I don't know where I put the blame more. It's ultimately all going to fall on the quarterback. I don't know if I agree that it's all Phil, but a lot of it is.
Yeah, a lot of it is. And a lot of it is offense. I mean, that was just to get blitzed the way they did in the first half and only score 7 points, get panicked, start throwing the ball all over the place when they probably shouldn't be doing that with the type of personnel they have. Everything was out of sync that game offensively. And even like their 2 scoring drives, it's like, okay, like they busted a big play to Gavin Bartholomew. Like it wasn't like they all of a sudden got hot on offense. There were still only 10 completions. So like
yeah. I think we said during the game, Phil seems to operate best like in chaos. It's not like they were methodically marching down the field. He had a punt. He basically had an arm punt to Kanate Munfield for 30 yards. But his touchdown passes were nice.
Yeah,
we give him that, right? I mean, he made 3 nice touchdown passes. The pass to Bartholomew for 60 yards. I mean, you take it. But all right. I think that's about it, Jim. think we might be good here. We're past the 9:30 mark. So we appreciate everybody who tuned in, got all the comments and questions. It's been a lot of fun. The live stream is definitely fun on the post-game show. So make sure you tune in on Saturday night. Probably around 11, I think, is when we're going to start. We'll talk for an hour about Pitt, West Virginia, and the Backyard Brawl. In the meantime, make sure you like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel and head over to Panther-Lair.com. Panther-Lair.com. Pittsburgh.rivals.com. The most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news. Don't want to miss anything, and definitely don't want to miss the message boards at Panther-Lair.com. So, Jim, thanks for hanging out tonight. We appreciate it. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. We check the morning pit tomorrow for inside look at West Virginia. And then we will, we'll have the live post-game show on Saturday night. So thanks. Enjoy it. And we will talk to you soon.